Okay, so we're on our third chapter, which is titled March, and in the year of the born Jackie Robinson. So far we know that Bandit, her name is now Shirley, and she has made it they've made it to Brooklyn. So they're in their new house, and in the last chapter she got lost, but everything's okay now. This is the picture that is on the book. So I'm guessing that Shirley is that little girl standing up, and it looks like we can make a pretty accurate prediction that she must be starting school in America now. But remember, she doesn't speak any English, so this could be tough for her. Chapter 3, March. 9 o'clock sharp the very next morning, Shirley sat in the principal's office at PS 8. Her mother and the schoolmistress were talking. Shirley didn't understand a word. It was embarrassing. Why hadn't she too studied the English course on the records that Father had sent? But it was too late now. She stopped trying to understand. Suddenly, Mother hissed in Chinese, "Stop that or else." Shirley snapped her head down. She had been staring at the stranger, but she could not keep her eyes from rolling up again. There was something more foreign about the principal than any other foreigner she had seen so far. What was it? It was not the blue eyes. Many others had them too. It was not the high nose. All foreign noses were higher than Chinese ones. It was not the blue hair. Hair comes in all colors in America. Yes, of course, naturally. The woman had no eyelashes. Other foreigners grew hair all over them, more than 6 Chinese together. This woman had none. Her skin was as bare as the happy Buddha's belly, except for the neat row of stiff curls that hugged her head. She had no eyebrows even. They were penciled on, and they looked just like the character for man. You can see the character there. It looks like a little point up. And every time she tilted her head, her hair moved all in one piece like a hat. "Shirley," Mother was trying to get her attention, "tell the principal how old you are." Shirley put up 10 fingers. While the principal filled out a form, Mother argued excitedly. But why? Shirley had given the correct answer. She'd counted just to make sure. On the day she was born, she was 1 year old, and 2 months later, upon the new year, she was 2. That was the year of the rabbit. Then came the dragon, snake, horse, sheep, monkey, rooster, dog, and now it was the year of the boar, making 10. Proof she was 10. Mother shook her head. Apparently she had lost the argument. She announced in Chinese, "Shirley, you will enter 5th grade." 5th? But Mother, I don't speak English, and besides, I only completed 3 grades in Chungking. I know, but the principal has explained that in America, everyone is assigned according to age. 10 years old means 5th grade, and we must observe the American rules, mustn't we? Shirley nodded obediently, but she could not help thinking that only Shirley had to go to school, and only Shirley would be in trouble if she failed. Mother stood up to leave. She took Shirley by the hand. "Remember, my daughter, you may be the only Chinese these Americans will ever meet. Do your best. Be extra good. Upon your shoulders rests the reputation of all Chinese." All 500 million? Shirley wondered. "You are China's little ambassador." "Yes, Mother." Shirley squared her shoulders and tried to feel worthy of this great honor. At the same time, she wished she could leave with Mother. Alone, the schoolmistress and Shirley looked at each other. Suddenly, the principal shut one eye, the right one, and opened it again. Was this another foreign custom, like shaking hands? It must be proper if principal does it, Shirley thought. She ought to return the gesture, but she didn't know how, so she shut and opened both eyes. Twice. This brought a warm laugh. The principal then led her to class. The room was large, with windows up the ceiling, row after row of students, each one unlike the next. Some faces were white like clean plates, other black like ebony. Some were in between shades. A few were spotted all over. One boy was as big around as a water jar. Several others were as thin as chopsticks. No one wore a uniform of blue like hers. There were sweaters with animals on them, shirts with stripes and shirts with squares, dresses in colors as varied as grand-uncle's paints. 3 girls even wore earrings. While Shirley looked about, the principal had been making a speech. Suddenly it ended with, "Shirley Temple Wong." The class stood up and waved. Huh, they were all so tall. Even Water Jar was a head taller than she was. For a fleeting moment, she wondered if Mother would consider buying an ambassador a pair of high-heeled shoes. "Hi, Shirley," the class shouted. Shirley bowed deeply. Then, taking a guess, she replied, "Hi." The teacher introduced herself and showed the new pupil to a front row seat. Shirley liked her right away, although she had the most difficult name, Mrs. Rappaport. She was a tiny woman with dainty bones and fiery red hair brushed skyward. Shirley thought that in her previous life she must have been a bird, a cardinal perhaps. Yet she commanded respect, for no student talked out of turn. Or was it the long, mean pole that hung on the wall behind the desk that commanded respect? It dwarfed the bamboo cane the teacher in Chungking had used to punish forehands whenever he stole a trifle from another. Throughout the lesson, Shirley leaned forward, barely touching her seat, to catch the meaning, but the words sounded like gurgling water. Now and then, when Mrs. Rappaport looked her way, she opened and shut her eyes as the principal had done, to show friendship. At lunchtime, Shirley went with the class to the school cafeteria, but before she could pick up a tray, several boys and girls waved for her to follow them. They were smiling, so she went along. They snuck back to the classroom to pick up coats, then hurried out the door and across the schoolyard to a nearby store. Shirley was certain they should not be there, but what choice did she have? These were now her friends. One by one, they gave their lunch money to the store owner, whom they called Mr. P. In return, he gave each a bottle of orange-colored water, bread twice the size and the ear of corn, oozing with meatballs, peppers, onions, and hot red gravy, and a large piece of brown paper to lay on the icy sidewalk and sit upon. While they ate, everyone except Shirley played marbles or cards or traded bottle caps and pictures of men swinging a stick or wearing a huge glove. So if they were swinging a stick or wearing a huge glove, they were trading baseball cards. It was the best lunch Shirley had ever had, and there was more. After lunch, each of them was allowed to select one item from those displayed under the glass counter. There were paper strips dotted with red and yellow sugar tacks, chocolate soldiers in blue tin foil, boxes of raisins and nuts, envelopes of chips, cookies as big as pancakes, candy elephants, lollipops in every color, a wax collection of red lips, white teeth, pink ears, and curly black mustaches. Shirley was the last to make up her mind. She chose a hand filled with juice. It looked better than it tasted, but she did not mind. Tomorrow she could choose again. But when she was back in her seat, waiting for Mrs. Rappaport to enter the classroom, Shirley's knees shook. What if the teacher found out about her escapade? There would go her ambassadorship. She would be shamed. Her parents would lose face. All 500 million Chinese would suffer. Round and round. Then Mrs. Rappaport came in. She did not look pleased. Shirley flinched when the teacher went straight to the long, mean pole. For the first time, her heart went out to Forehands. She shut her eyes and prayed to the goddess of mercy. "Oh, Kuan Yin, please don't let me cry." She waited, listening for Mrs. Rappaport's footsteps to become louder and louder. They did not. Finally, curiosity overcame fear, and she looked up. Mrs. Rappaport was using the pole to open a window. The lessons continued. During arithmetic, Shirley raised her hand. She went to the blackboard and wrote the correct answer. Mrs. Rappaport rewarded her with a big smile. Shirley opened and shut her eyes to show her pleasure. Soon she was dreaming about candy elephants and cookies the size of pancakes. Then school was over. As Shirley was putting on her coat, Mrs. Rappaport handed her a letter, obviously to be given to her parents. Fear returned, round and round, this time like rocks. She barely greeted her mother at the door. "What happened?" "Nothing." "You look sick." "I'm all right." "Perhaps it was something you ate at lunch?" "No," she said much too quickly. "Nothing at all to do with lunch." "What then?" "The job of ambassador is harder than I thought." At bedtime, Shirley could no longer put off giving up the letter. Trembling, she handed it to her father. She imagined herself on a boat back to China. He read it aloud to Mother. Then they both turned to her, a most quizzical look on their faces. Your teacher suggests we take you to the doctor. She thinks there is something wrong with your eyes. And that is the end of chapter 3, March.